We're live.
What's up, guys? How's everybody doing?
Let's see.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Ready. Justin Whaley's not ready because he can't get his shit figured out.
We got one guy. Well,
Right.
I mean, there's more than that because BK's been over there for a while talking. There's three.
I'll share it on my stuff real quick too. That way maybe we can draw some people in. We'll see.
Justin's back.
There's Justin.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes. Don't move. Clicked on the wrong fucking name. Hey Justin, if you got your phone, you might share the link on your Facebook too. Not the StreamYard link, but wherever. So it's streaming on Facebook. Where's it streaming at, by the way, Phil?
The PhilBilly Moonshine channel on Facebook and the PhilBilly Moonshine channel on YouTube.
Okay.
Well, I am on my phone, so I don't know if that will mess it up.
It does mess it up. It does.
Yeah, don't do that. It's bad.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. I don't know if I go to share that, if it's going to mess anything up.
Don't do it. It's bad. Don't.
Okay.
Yes. The StreamYard is to join. That link is to join. You guys can come in and ask questions. I'd like to, people keep trying to call me. I don't know if they trying to get in here, but I'd like to give Billy Reed a shout out because he gave me this idea. And the minute he gave me the idea, I immediately thought about Alan Bishop and Alan brought the crew. These guys are awesome. If you guys got any questions, come on in. Feel free to ask the professionals.
Yeah, we tried to bring Wayne from Ozark Steelworks, but he's he's traveling and can only communicate via carrier pigeon apparently. So
he commented. Wayne said, "I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to keep trying. We have a shitty signal in the Gulf."
Likely excuse. Guy can wind copper like nobody else, but he can't figure out a cell phone.
Right. I know. Just see that new thing he made, man. That thing's badass.
Oh yeah. Wait till you see the next wave of stuff that he's working on and we're coming up with ideas for. There's cool shit coming.
He's taking D-flags to the next fucking level, dude. I mean, my favorite is the Mr. Not the Mr. Fusion, but the other one.
The Shocker.
The Shocker, dude. I love the fucking Shocker. The minute I seen it, I almost bought one. And I build still parts for a fucking living now. But I was like, God damn, dude, I'm about to get one of them for my keg still. And I don't even really run it that much anymore. But
Wayne and I have worked on a lot of different things because I have a lot of ideas, but I can't build worth of shit. And Wayne can build. And a lot of what Wayne is doing, people don't realize it's very, very old. It's very, very old in the art of distillation. Some of the stuff that we're working on is actually like the inline thumper retort system. Some of the technology for that goes back to at least the 1700s, if not the 1600s. Just stuff that people have forgotten about. So,
which I'll interject and say that thing is awesome.
Yes, it's going to be even cooler once we can actually run multiple ones of them because it'll do everything a 3-chamber does, but it will do it. I wouldn't say better. It'll do it differently, more intensively, basically. So, but yeah. I'm all about what Wayne's doing with Ozark Steelworks and Jason at 13 Stills. Jason's another one of those people I can reach out to if I have an idea, and he's all over.
Yeah. I like seeing his pictures, man. I see his pictures all the time on Facebook. I love seeing pictures of stills.
Oh yeah. Well, it's always cool to look at what somebody else is doing. You know, even if they're people that aren't like really, really, advanced into the art or anything. Just simple moonshine setups and just look at what they're doing and how they're doing it, and I almost always can learn something from it. So no matter how much I know about it, there's always something I can pick up from what other people are doing.
Hell yeah.
So you drinking anything over there, Whiskey Shaman? What you got?
Right now I got a beer because it's freaking 100 degrees out here and I'm trying to cool off. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be breaking into something in a minute for sure.
No freezer shots going on today.
No, not today. Not today.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm drinking absinthe because I ate something yesterday that tried to kill me. So I'm hoping this will fix the problem. We'll
Kill
see.
it before it kills you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get rid of all the bad.
So Phil, how did you get into the distilling game, into the moonshine game?
I seen an ad on I think eBay or something for a still, and I've always liked drinking moonshine, and I was like, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna start making moonshine, and I did, and I taught myself the first first year. It was a little crazy, but after that I got better. I learned more, and and finally I learned, after a couple years, I learned how to use a damn hydrometer. I used to just taste it, and I always gave it 2 weeks. I was like, 2 weeks it'll be done. 2 weeks it'll be done.
Right.
Once I got a fucking hydrometer, I'm like, holy shit, this is a new level, man. This is next level. And then all copper pot still, that takes that flavor to the next level too, man. It's crazy, but
it's a beautiful 20 that you got there.
Yeah, it's cool. I might get a bigger one, find a place to hide it, and run some big dog shit in the future. I don't know. I'm trying to go legal. This bar, there's a biker bar that I used to run around at, and they're talking about getting my own outbuilding and let me run a still and serve and everything right fucking there. I hope it works out.
Nice.
It's a pretty wild bar though, so
right.
I don't know if many people will want to come there, but there's a lot of bikers coming.
It's the clientele that buys early and often. It'll keep you busy anyways. So.
Definitely.
Oh yeah,
for sure. I know I used to be the one that was encouraging everybody to try to go legal, and now I feel like after being in the industry for 10 years, I'm like, don't go fucking legal. Just don't. Keep whatever your day job is and just fucking do this for fun. Because people are just waiting for a chance to crush your fucking soul in this world.
Absolutely.
So you tell me this now.
Hey, that's your fault. You started showing up. You showed up, and you showed up repeatedly and did free labor until we hired you. That's on you.
That's fair.
You might as well have walked in like you might as well have walked in and been like, would you guys please abuse me? Just I need this bad. Like Pedro was even worse, Steven. So he came in whenever I was interviewing people. You know how I don't know if I ever told you how Steven actually got his job. Mm-hmm. So the reason he got hired, he didn't have any experience distilling whatsoever, but I saw that he'd been a janitor at the school for like 3 years. I'm like, fucking hired. You're hired.
This guy can clean.
If you can't do anything else, you can fucking clean. So, but Whiskey Shaman, what you been working on, man?
Well, right now I have recently, like last week, I went to Andalusia Whiskey in Blanco, Texas, and they do some great single malts and stuff like that. I went over there to pick up a bottle. They had a bottled and bond rum, the first in Texas to ever be made. It's agricole rum. I'm not really into rum, obviously, but I was like, it's cool, so I'm gonna go pick it up. But he was running. He had just done a mash of some peated whiskey that he was doing, and he was raking out the grain bin, and he said, "Hey, do you want some of this grain?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll feed it to the chickens or something." And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "You know what? I'll throw a gumball head on top of it and fucking see what I can get out of it." So it's sitting over here fermenting. It's about done. I might run it tomorrow and see what it looks like. Maybe get that Mr. Fusion back there, get it rolling, and see what I can get, the flavor I can get off it. They use a 10% Irish peat, so it's a real light peat, so it's not super peated, but it's super good. So I'm hoping that if I can get that, I don't know if I have enough yield to get in my big still, but maybe I can run it through my baby still and go from there.
Yeah, I like that Irish peat. We did that a couple years ago. I did it was a smoked apple brandy that we called Lafroig because I love Lafroig, but I also love apple brandy. So we smoked it with the Irish peat and called it Lafroig to sort of, poke fun at the French and Calvados. So, but it turned out really well. So Didn't last long. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
I bet not. I
It's
bet
gone
not.
quick. So, yeah, they on that rum they're doing, so that all straight up Texas sugarcane, or
Yeah, it's sugarcane that they got over by the border of Mexico, and they hand pressed it and did all that. And they only have copper pot stills, so they double pot stilled it, stuck it in there at Navy strength, and it came out at Navy. No, it came out at 50% because it was bottled and bond. But yeah, I got to try a sample of it. It was really good, obviously. And I think they put it in first use oak, so they had already used it for. They have another whiskey that they do that they put in. It's a bottled and bond malt whiskey, and so that's in new oak, and so they took it out of that new oak and threw that rum in there. So
nice.
Yeah,
I may have to have you hook me up with those guys, because I'd like to have them on Distillers Talk sometime, because we've never had them on. So.
I sent the link to Christy, but you know how that goes.
Right.
I can send you I can send you Moose's email. So,
Heck yeah, absolutely. I'd be glad to have.
Yeah,
them.
they're cool guys.
Justin, what are you working on, man?
Nothing and all the things at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much learning. Not doing my podcast, as you know.
We've noticed.
Yeah, you know. I'm glad everybody besides Alan can throw that out there.
And to be fair, I hadn't even talked to him about that at all. That was of his completely 100% his own accord right there, brother.
So I'll be what was it? 3 or 4 days ago, I actually recorded a podcast, and I used a new mic, and it sounds like Chewbacca taking a shit in a tin can. So I'm redoing that one. It's on, which is funny because Alan's putting some stuff out now about yeast, but I had a little project at work using the Amanda Palmer corn, getting a yeast starter actually off that corn. We've got 2 Donna jugs of that yeast starter there at work now that hopefully we'll eventually end up using for something. Working on that. The last few weeks there at work, we were distilling apple brandy and absinthe. I almost had a heart attack the first run of absinthe I done. I think I called Alan at least 5 times. Couldn't get a hold of him one time. I actually messaged Kim, like, I need Alan to call me right now. Everything is wrong.
She came running out to the garden, and she's like, you need to call Justin now. And I'm like, what did he say? Like, distillery's on fire, the boiler blew up, what's the deal? I don't know, you just need to call him. He said call him.
Yeah. So I was running absinthe, and the first run that we done, it was clear, the blue absinthe. I was running the second run, and I was not expecting any color at all coming over, and started getting a little bit of green from the gin basket plus the tails and everything like that, as Alan had explained to me. But yeah, I was like, this should not be happening. I've ruined everything. A whole batch of absinthe is gone.
All the way up.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a whole thing, but other than that, not a whole lot, just learning. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing wrong with that for sure. So Phil, whenever you guys have any questions, feel free, man. We'll all sit here and bullshit for no good reason all night for sure. So
yeah,
I'm cool with that. I just figured there'd be a bunch of people in here, a bunch of guys with questions, even the guys who come up with this. And speaking of absinthe, man, I've never ran it, and I've been considering trying my hand at it. And for the last, I've been sometimes I'll consider something, but it'll take a whole year before I actually get to it, because I have stuff I gotta run. Everything I do is research and development. Every single thing is me learning how to master a grain or master a certain type of liquor. And so I've not done absinthe yet, and I was considering it, and I watched probably about 6 or 7 months ago, I watched a podcast with you and Jesse from Still It, and I was over, because I know nothing about absinthe whatsoever, and I'm not even going to pretend to, I've never done it. I want to try it. I mean, I don't even know if I really enjoy absinthe. I've gotten shit-faced on it. I think I drank too much. But what it was like for me, it was a different buzz than like say whiskey or a beer. It was a totally different buzz for me, and it made me feel kind of like I was sick. But I think it was because I drank almost a whole bottle of shit.
Well, yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
But I still want to. I want to give it a go because I tried. I did. What is it? Agave. I'm not gonna call it tequila, even though I call it fucking tequila because I'm an asshole. But I did agave, and I thought it was excellent. I really like it. Like how it came out. I'm gonna do that again in the future. But I want to do the same thing with absinthe. I want to be able to make a decent drink, and
Right.
So I'm out here trying to learn how to do it, and when I typed it in, that came up. You and Jesse from Still It came up, and I think that was the first video, and I was like, "Ooh!" And I watched that podcast, and it was a good long podcast, and I learned some stuff.
Good.
And I'm gonna give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absinthe and apple brandy are kind of my two things that I'm really passionate about. But no, absinthe is one of those things that if people are really serious about getting truly into the art of distillation, like that's your goal, is to get to the point where you can actually make a real absinthe along the Belle Epoque sort of lines. And then the reason I say that is even if you don't like it, it takes into account all the other forms of distillation, because you can make it from any base that you want to. So you master all those different bases, including agave. I've got an agave absinthe that I'm working on right now, as a matter of fact. But you master all those things, then you figure out gin, then maybe you go to aquavit, and then absinthe is like the it's like the master thesis for a distiller. It'd be the equivalent of whatever you put in front of your college professor to be able to graduate and get your master's. So it's not an easy drink, and even people who have quote unquote pulled it off, on TV, weren't really pulling off Belle Epoque style absinthe. And no disrespect to any of them, but they weren't really even in the ballpark. So it's when you make a real absinthe, you're dealing with a distillation that is almost a solid state distillation. You have as many botanicals in that pot as what you have liquid in that pot. And if you're running on an open flame, you better be real careful with it, and you better have a way to separate those botanicals from the bottom of that stiller. You'll scorch the shit out of it.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
But it's a lot of fun.
With stills, man, I spent 2 hours a day just cleaning my pot. I didn't even get to the worm or the thumper, just the pot. It was crazy. I'm so sick of cleaning, man. That's the worst part about this shit is washing. I call it washing dishes because that's what it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Once you get legal, that becomes the biggest part of your job, just keeping things fucking cleaned up, especially if you have any tours going on.
Yeah.
Just walk around with a rag hanging out of your back fucking pocket, pretty much. So.
Oh yeah. But, you got anything new you've been working on?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of projects. I've always got a bunch of stuff going on at once. The agave thing I've been working on for a little bit over a year now, and I've done a lot of different experiments with it. And I have plans to do some legal stuff with that in the future. Basically, it won't be an alternative to tequila or mezcal. There'll be some other ingredients in there. So I played around with some smoked rye. You can see some of that stuff on the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute channel on YouTube. I played around with some ginger as well with it. Played around with some smoked apples with it. I've actually smoked some agave syrup itself and played around with that in that fermentation process as well. Always playing around with different absinthe and absinthe bases. The most recent thing that I did was, and I didn't film it for the channel. The reason I didn't is because I have plans for it. But so, a lot of your alchemical history and a lot of your apothecary history crosses over. So I have a real intense interest in botanical spirits and what you can do with them. And one of the most interesting stories out there is how Dr. Pepper got started. And it came out of a pharmacy. And it was based on the ingredients that particular pharmacist was using on a daily basis. So I took the 23 flavors of Dr. Pepper and worked those into a spirit that I made and came up with, it's not really a gin, but it's got juniper in it. It doesn't taste exactly like Dr. Pepper, but you can damn sure mix it into Dr. Pepper and it tastes like fucking Dr. Pepper. Like you can't hardly pick up the alcohol on it at all in the Dr. Pepper. So that one's been a lot of fun.
You got that on the shelf? Can somebody purchase that?
Not yet, but they will be able to in the future. So that's prototyping a bunch of stuff for future projects, basically.
Yeah.
And been playing around a lot with rye whiskey. So I've got a guy that he and I have got a company that we've started with his wife, as well as his father, and he's picking up investors right now. So I've been doing a lot of stuff with traditional rye whiskey, specifically Pennsylvania style rye whiskey, but it's based on some books that his great grandfather had, some notebooks. His great grandfather worked for a huge amount of distilleries in Kentucky and Indiana, and the last two he worked for were Shinley and Seagram's. And he wrote down everything. He wrote down process, he wrote down weights, he wrote down times, all that kind of stuff. So we're recreating that style of rye whiskey, and I think we're on the verge of getting ready to potentially buy some barrels of actual whiskey to do some blending with, just to get out the door and get started and have some money to actually start distilling something somewhere at another craft distillery that we can hire to do that for us. So that's taken up a lot of my time.
Hell yeah. It's always fun to try new stuff. Like I try a new corn like all the time. I've done so many different kinds of corn, and every one of them come out with a different flavor. Mm-hmm. Every single one of them. And I love each one, but you have your favorites. And I feel like I'm ready to tackle some other things, and like some bourbon, stuff like that. You know what I want to really do is the absinthe and the. I've never made a scotch. I want to make a scotch.
Yeah.
I want to get some peated, do a single malt, and the only person I know that's ever even did one is JJ.
Yep.
He got some peated grain, and he gave me a little bottle of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff.
See, that's one of those sort of categories where like trying to get the people who identify as either home distillers to cross over a little bit into the moonshine world, or the people in the moonshine world to cross over into the home distilling world, because a lot of the home distillers, that's like they do the do not pass go, right? So they don't even start off with sugar shine. They immediately go to all grain, and then they have to learn backwards versus a moonshiner learning on sugar shine and then learning forwards. And if there was more talk between the two groups in general, it would help everybody out, because there's a lot. I mean, there's guys right now at home making damn Scotch style whiskeys that blow any U.S. made single malt, I'll say it that way at the moment, out of the water. I mean, just absolutely blow it out of the fucking water. And it's more disparate there than it is in any other category I've ever seen. I mean, guys make bourbon at home, but I have yet to have a bourbon from a home distiller where I'm like, yeah, that's fucking on par with what's out there on the market, because it just doesn't work that way. But it certainly seems to work that way with the single malt thing. And I know Whiskey Shaman, you've done some single malt stuff, haven't you?
Yeah. No, that's basically you nailed it on the head with that. Like, that's where I started. When I got into this, I wanted to make single malt, and that was my thing. I wanted to make single malt, and so I started doing brewing and stuff like that. And then I was like, I don't like the beer I made wasn't very good, so I'm just going to distill it. So then it turned into, okay, well, I'm making this single malt. Well, it tastes like a Highland single malt. Like, there's really nothing to it. It's just kind of malty and fruity. So then I threw some peat in there. Then I threw some chocolate malt in there. Then I did some honey and, all kinds of other stuff. And then you find a profile that you like, and then you just run with it. And I like you were saying, PhilBilly, with the corn, I've done that with malt. I've literally done from, your 6-row barley all the way to your black patent malt, like the one that has 0 diastatic power, and made a chocolate stout and distilled it, and it's crazy the flavor profile you get off of it. Some of it's not great. I'm not gonna lie. Some of it's not great because some of it's not made to be ran through a still. But a lot of it, if you can find some good stuff, I found one malt that I really enjoyed, and I don't even know if they make it anymore. It's called Pearl Malt. Mm-hmm. And it was super good. And then I ended up using it in a bourbon as well, and it just kind of rounded everything out. It was almost oat-like in the way it was the way its profile was. It was really smooth and soft and stuff like that. So it was nice. It was nice.
That pearl malt caught on there for a little while, maybe like 8-9 years ago. Every homebrew store you'd go in would just have tons and tons of that shit laying around, and I haven't seen it in years now. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, brother?
What's going on?
Oh, same old yourself.
Just got my youngest to bed, and you know how it goes, Alan.
Right.
You know, just trying to make it work.
Right. Glad to see you, man.
Yeah, man. No, it's thanks for letting me into the room.
Right. Yeah, listen, I don't know if this is necessarily a lineup that anybody should want to be a part of, but yes.
Well, considering the fact that I've been exploring the cousins process recently, I may need your help at some point in picking the right acids to use. I've scoured the forums, used several different ones. I made a run today using lime, and it came out good, but I feel like I can go deeper.
Yeah. You know, the old timers, they used damn sulfuric as much as anything, but I am not about putting sulfuric acid.
Listen, I've read the forums, and I'm like, okay, if I can get my hands on, like, just trying to run down what's safe enough to do in a home environment, I guess, is this
right. That's the trick. Yeah. But you know, if you you probably couldn't get the same catalyst out of it, but I would say with any decent food grade acid, short of like something like malic that's really going to affect your flavor, you should be able to use citric or something like that to get pretty damn close if you have a pH that'll tolerate or a yeast that'll tolerate the pH drop.
What I did was so to try to mimic the cousins process, I use the vinasse in the wash. So like 60 to 70% back set is what I used in the wash, and it's like a 6th generation back set. So let that ferment. I have my muck pit. I made a muck pit addition after primary was done, and then I took the high and low wines from my previous run and put the acid in those. Is that how you understand the cousins process to work? And then
to some greater or lesser degree, and a lot of it depends on obviously what region.
Do all that. Tell him the easy way to do it.
Let's see, what's the easy way to do it? So, if you break that down into the most basic and simple form, you take all of your spent wash from your still after your stripping run, put that into a container somewhere where you can control it, and then you can either start pitching weird bacteria, or you can start letting weird bacteria grow itself. It's part of it. They would oftentimes use, JJ, is what you were saying, like using lime even in the dunder pit, which I think now they kind of realize that wasn't necessary because they're trying to acidify too. So I'm not sure. That's where I get lost.
So what?
All I did back in the day was I put one, when this is a long time, and I'm not going to tell you how long or who I learned it from or nothing else, but back in the day, you had spring water and you put it in the thing, and then you went to make it, and then you would just add there wasn't no such thing as pH. So, but later on in the years, I learned the pH was baking soda.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing, though, is that what you're looking for are the salts that you add to either your low wines or to your muck pit. So like my muck pit right now is controlled to a point where like it's buried in the backyard, like to ground level. It's a bucket that's buried, so it stays at ground temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And I add to it.
Damn!
It's my dog. Somebody knocked on the door.
But
He must be wanting something.
trying to salts is what I heard somebody even. I was reading one of the other day. Somebody even distilled down to and boiled what was in their muck down just to cultivate salts. Have you heard anything like that, Al?
Yeah, to some degree. So, and I'm sure, I think we might have even touched on this on Distillers Talk, JJ, but like Boston Apothecary has got a lot of that literature on his website specifically. And I seem to vaguely remember coming across that. What's really interesting too, JJ, this old school whiskey thing in the United States. And when I say old school, I mean late 1700s, early 1800s. But what we now know as the sour mash process with bourbon, that's not what it was at that time period. It very much resembles exactly what you're talking about. They were purposely pulling stillage aside, setting it aside, letting it go rancid, getting that bacteria up and going, and then using that to do basically the same thing we're talking
Every single
about.
day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So.
they did the same thing you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I watch your channel all the time.
Thank you.
And exactly what you're talking about is the truth.
Mm-hmm. JJ, are you gonna try to get a hold of some fission yeast for that project?
I mean, I've got a guy. So my guy up at CNC Malt, he knows several different yeast guys that like do it on small production here in West PA, and I've inquired about it. It's all those weird things that you want to get your hands on, but you got to know a guy, right?
Yeah. And those guys seem to be, when it comes to that and their sourcing, a lot of them seem to be pretty tight-lipped. Like I know,
well, even
Richard,
the maltsters, like the guys that know their shit when it comes to like.
Look at that bad motivator right there.
175.
Hell yeah!
Sorry, had to get another little drink.
Look like a nice little library of barrels there.
Ooh,
Yeah, I had to stock up.
Right?
Shit, you got the most.
Yeah.
So we got a question in the comments.
Let's go.
Shaky Jackson said, I got a question. I just started a sugar wash and got carried away with the sugar and added 24 pounds of sugar to 10 gallons of water. And the starting gravity was 1.104. And after 3 days, the gravity was 1.06 with a pH of 5. I don't know what the question was, though.
Okay.
It sounded like he's asking about his yeast stalling out potentially. I mean, that's a pretty damn high gravity for anything eating just straight up sugar, man. I mean, yeast is not designed to do that. Even EC 1118, etc. I mean, you might be able to get it down to 10, 15 or something like that, but
add more water.
Yeah,
Yep.
add more water.
That's
too.
what I would do. Add more fucking water.
Yeah.
That sounds like some badass cereal milk to be drinking on right there.
Yeah.
right.
Hey, you remember
That's
when
what I do.
cats used to make that just like just that straight sugar wine back in the day.
Oh yeah.
So that sounds like
Yeah, I'm curious. That'd be a fun question, though. I mean, if the goal here is to specifically get moonshiners headed in the direction of somewhat home distilling, I mean, hell, let's start with sugar shine here. I mean, what are you guys like protocols for like a straight up sugar shine, right? Where you start at? And when I say sugar shine, I mean with grain or with fruit, either way, not just straight sugar. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Man, I know. Go ahead, JJ.
no, I was just gonna say. I mean, like, your nutrients are key. Even if I'm doing, because Alan saw homeboy do for Jesse from Stilla do the vodka that was kind of inspired by what your process.
Yeah,
like,
the
I
brandy neutral.
You have to literally, like, if you're gonna go for a sugar shine, you have to be geared towards wanting a neutral, number one, in terms of flavor. But I think that you just have to add things and accept the fact that you're gonna get residual flavors from whatever it is that you put into that sugar shine. Like, if you're going for a vodka and you put weed in it, and I think a lot of people found out, like, if you put weed in it, you're gonna taste wheat even after like the third distillation. You're gonna fucking taste it. Like,
Absolutely.
There, especially if you're doing pot still. But that's not a bad thing. You know.
No. Yeah, and those traditional, vodkas, Samogons, etc., they all had some flavor to them, even when distilled to 170. But even think about just straight up, old school, we'll call it almost industrial sugar shine with like, wheat shorts or wheat bran. That wheat bran, no matter how little they put in there, how much they put in there, it wasn't given starch, but damn, did it not give some flavor. I mean, I had a sugar shine that was distilled by a gentleman from French Lick area who's now passed away, based off of his grandfather's recipe. And it was literally somewhere in the 2 pounds for 50 gallons of malt corn and somewhere around 10 pounds for 50 gallons of just corn, and then 2 pounds per gallon of sugar. And he aged it on oak. And you know what? If they hadn't told me that that's how it was made, I'd have had no fucking clue, because it was that damn good. I mean, it was super surprising. Now I've had the opposite of that too, which is, I don't know what this is and I'm not fucking drinking it. But, there's nothing wrong with doing that old school sugar shine thing for sure. But yeah, PhilBilly, what's kind of your thoughts there?
Do I put, you talking about the question here?
Yeah. I'm just jumping around, just trying to fill space.
Oh, I do both. Sometimes I'll throw some tails into the next distillation and bring up proof a little bit, give you a little more liquor. And sometimes I'll save a shit ton of tails, and then I got a little smaller still, and I will I'll run a tails run, and then I got like a little thumper on my little liquor. I call it my liquor still. Like, I'll run liquor through it. I'll proof it all about 40, put it in there, and then I'll flavor it. And man, I make some good shit out of tails. I'll fuck with some tails. I got a big old bin of tails, bro.
That's where the vast majority of your flavors at is in the tails. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that, but that's the closer you get to water, the more those miscible ingredients come across in distillation, the more flavor you get out of it in the redistillation for sure. But I'm not, like, when it comes to sugar shine or doing things at home, I'm not picky. Like, I very rarely ever do the same thing twice as far as methodology. When it comes to fermentation, it's usually, and Justin knows this, it's usually because I'm fucking drunk by the time we get around to mashing in a sugar shine. So I keep it simple, right?
Some of this.
Yeah, just
throw that.
Yep. What do we got on hand? What's over here? And sometimes I throw in little miscellaneous things, but like generally, pound of grain per gallon, pound of sugar per gallon. A lot of times I do like to invert the sugar, and then just depend on what I'm running, what grain it is. I'll either run on a thumper and call it done, or what I
pound of sugar per gallon. A lot of times I do like to invert the sugar.
Repeating myself.
Depending on what I'm running, what grain it is. I'll either run on a thumper and call it done, or grain per gallon, pound of sugar per gallon.
Who's somebody's a few minutes behind.
Not me. Justin, what'd you do?
Not me.
It's Bubba. Bubba, try going out and coming back in, brother.
Not me.
It's Bubba. Bubba, try going back in.
Okay.
Yeah, refresh your page and then try and come back in. I'll put another link over here.
But I'll pretty much almost almost always double distill everything, whether it's with a thumper and a single pass or it's, double pot still distillation. But what I like to do with sugar shines, really, if I have time to fuck with them, whether it's brandy or it's grain sugar shine, I'll leave the fermentation the same. Sometimes I like to run that single pass with the pot and the thump, and then take the hearts off of that and redistill it a third time. But what I really prefer to do is to make single pass with pot and thumper, collect my hearts, get rid of my heads, set my tails aside, set the hearts aside, and then I'll set up the still without a thumper on it, just going straight to the condenser. Put new wash in the still, and then put those tails or those hearts back in the still, redistill it to where you're getting like a 2.5 distillation out of it. I really like doing that with like sugar shine brandies, because nothing wrong with running a sugar shine based brandy one time, other than you don't get great separation of the compounds that you'd like to get separation with, because all the azerotypes are still stuck together. The water and the alcohol are stuck together. So I figured out by doing that 2.5, you get a higher proof. You still get all the flavor because you have that single pass there, that one time on the second run, and you don't have near the fucking hangover the next day off of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I do that. So like mountain brandies, like that mountain brandy I was telling you about that I'm doing for this Barrel and Flow festival, like that, the 2.5 has become my basically standard across the board for what I'm amalgamating for that festival. It's 2.5. So I'll run, I'll strip, and then I'll add, and then wash, and then run it again. Like it works. I mean, like you get the full flavor, and then I did it one time with I showed you my my deflag that I built. I ran it one time with the deflag on with copper scrubbies on a 48-inch 2-inch column, and like everybody's like, "Oh, it's gonna strip all your flavor out." All that did for me, I let the heads run out, and then I basically compressed my hearts.
Yep. And
it worked great. I let the heads run off. I was able to compress my hearts, and then tails came at like 130 proof.
Yep. Higher proof, less volume, but plenty of flavor.
Exactly. So people, when you talk about like using deflag or anything like that, or plates even, like, there's a reason why those commercial guys just use those commercial guys use even something like perforated plates, right? And you're not stripping flavor, you're just reducing volume.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. 100%. And that's a trick with a batch system. As long as you're running a batch system or a very inefficient column, like a low rec Kentucky bourbon column, you can still pull plenty of flavor from that. Absolutely. So where bourbon makes the mistake a lot of times, in my opinion, is they go too far in the barrel, and then you don't have any of the grain flavor left with a lot of the commercial varieties. So,
you talk about that. I want to taste that grain, baby. Like,
yeah,
I've noticed a difference between moonshiners, home distillers, and just people that do it themselves, as compared to like bourbon enthusiasts and things like that. Is like when you make it yourself, you kind of want to taste the grain, and when you don't, you just you're going after the wood. You're going after like the characteristics of the wood. And I will say, like, there's some, I don't know how you guys feel about finishing barrels and shit like that. I mean, I've had some that's fucking excellent. Like, I've had some shit MGP barrels that they take and they put in some other stuff, like Good Times.
Good Times.
Some of that stuff's
there
good.
it is.
I mean,
yeah,
I don't know how you guys feel. Like these guys, they finished this in a port cask. It's pretty damn good. But also, I want to taste the grain, and you're never going to get that from something you usually. I'm not going to say you rarely get that from something you buy on the shelf.
Yeah.
Right, and there's plenty of market space for all those things to happen. Absolutely, and I think the craft movement is changing that up a little bit and focusing a little bit more on grain in general. At least, we are, and Iron Root Republic is, and there's several of them out there that are. There's plenty of wood whores out there too, right? Without a doubt. And that's fine if that's your thing. There's all kinds of room for that in the market too. And even like the definition between, home distiller and moonshiner, having been both of those and a legal distiller, I think JJ falls in this category. I think Randall does too. I think at this point it's almost like there's room for all those things as long as people are honest, even on the commercial side. Like Good Times, if they were 100% honest and they were like, yeah, there was like 3 gallons of whatever the previous product was left in this barrel, and we're not calling it bourbon anymore. Like, they wouldn't get half the shit they get from the purist in the industry.
Hershey syrup.
Hey,
Yeah.
can I shameless plug before I get off real quick?
Yeah.
So we got the out. I got a limited run coming out in Western PA.
Hell yeah.
It's 100% malted blue corn, clear whiskey. Just it's my little jump into the legal world, but I appreciate
Dude,
it's awesome.
Like, well, I mean,
That's great.
that's fucking killer. I gotta have 2 bottles of that, bro.
Yeah, me too.
you look
at
at
least 2.
you look at yourself in this industry and you're like, okay, I'm trying to do something, and my first foray into this is trying to get people to appreciate the taste of the grain and where it comes from.
Yep.
And how it's grown, how it's malted. So, I mean, for this first foray, like, fuck the barrel. I want you to taste it as it is. And, for the purists out there who like Kentucky bourbon and they like the barrel and they like the caramel notes and all that shit, like, this is not that, but it's fucking delicious. I promise.
Yeah, the great thing with that too, JJ, is that it's changing some, right? The bourbon purists are less and less so part of our craft distilling market, and the people who have adventurous palates, they'll seek your stuff out, man. So they'll find it and they'll be all about it.
And if anything at all, like, I really appreciate this community as a platform for like being able to explore those flavors. I know that we as a community like those flavors, and I just can't say enough how much I appreciate Joel.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I can't wait to taste that.
Absolutely.
At least 2 bottles, bro.
At least.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
So,
I'll hit you in the DMs.
hell yeah.
Sweet. Let's do it.
I gotta
Have any of you guys?
I gotta go serve dinner up. I will holler at y'all. All right, hit me in the
All
DMs.
right.
Let me know.
Later,
Hell
brother.
yeah, JJ. See you, bro.
Nice to see you.
Good to see y'all.
Have a good one, man.
Have any of you guys experienced or experimented with putting cereal and making mash out of cereals?
Absolutely.
Little.
Absolutely.
What you got,
What?
Randall?
You mean actual cereal, like commercial cereals that you can buy at the store,
Put
like
up,
Apple
Yep.
Jacks and shit like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
I put oatmeal.
I've done what was it? Fruity Pebbles. That was fun. It was weird as hell. It was like black by the time it got done fermenting. It was fucking weird. Very, very small run. I think I didn't add any sugar to it, and I think it was at like 1065. So yeah. So it fermented out pretty good, and but it tasted like shit at the end. It just wasn't good. And then I did Apple Jacks because I was trying to make like a Applejack moonshine or something out of it, and you could get that cinnamon flavor on the back end, but no apple came through or anything like that. It was just straight up like almost fireball-y at the very end, which wasn't great. Wasn't great, but it was okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you could put cinnamon in it.
Yeah.
So I haven't, but there's 2 just because these are my cereals. I honestly want to mess around with sometime. Frosted shredded wheat. I like that even when I was a kid, and it is the only cereal that nobody else in the house would eat. Now, once Tiff and I got married, for some reason, the youngest kid always ate my frosted shredded wheat cereal and then blamed it on everybody else. But that and honey bunches of oats with almonds
Yeah.
I want to try to do that sometime. And I don't know if the almonds would mess anything up as far as the oils are possibly going rancid, but
Nope.
Should be fine.
That's in the fucking Dr. Pepper spirit that I did. Almonds are in there, and then I use it for peach brandy all the time.
yeah.
So all that peach brandy that you ever had over here, that's all got almonds in it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. It works great. Works great. So yeah, actually, oh, go ahead. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, going to jump back on something real quick with Justin, because just to bring him in on this conversation, because Justin is fairly new to the world of distilling. We were talking about that barrel versus grain forward flavor or fruit forward flavor. And I know Justin was, a pretty big bourbon fan. And I'm kind of curious how your opinion, if it's changed any over time, or what your thoughts are on finishing and all that stuff we were touching on a while ago, Justin.
So as far as like bourbon goes, I've always kind of leaned towards more of the grain forward stuff anyways. But my palate has opened up a whole lot more to where, like, if I go down in the basement or where we have all of our bottles and I pick something up that's more barrel forward, I end up putting it down and either picking up something of ours or something that I know is grain forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I have leaned a whole lot more that way as far as getting away from the barrel. And I'll throw this in there also. I was going to say this when JJ was on here, but I didn't get a chance to, because he was talking about the white whiskey thing and people kind of leaning more towards that or getting away from the barrel. I actually did a tour today, and it's been like this more and more. We get people from Kentucky coming up and doing tours all the time, and we always talk about the difference between, double pot still stuff, pushing the grain forward, trying not to lean too much on the barrel and things like that. And I actually had a guy today that lives 10 minutes from Frankfort, Kentucky. And he actually bought like 2 or 3 bottles of the white bourbon whiskey there at work.
Good.
Because he when he first came in, it was, he wasn't sure about the grain flavor forward and all this stuff. He likes, 10, 12-year bourbons and things like that. But then he left with 3 bottles of white bourbon whiskey that's straight grain. There's no way around it. That's just what it is. So
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I've always been into bourbon a little bit, but I'm most definitely appreciating the grain stuff forward. Not everybody was on here a while ago, but like MB Rollin is one of my favorite things, and that's straight grain forward whiskey.
Yeah,
so
very much so. Yeah. Also, for anybody ever starts a legal distillery and they're not in Kentucky, if you want to make the bourbon world mad, make a white bourbon whiskey.
Oh, fuck you for that, by the way, because I get into more arguments out front about that than anything else.
Yep. All it's got to do is touch a new oak. It doesn't say how long. It just has to touch a new oak barrel.
Holy shit.
The only thing you could have done worse than that is to run it through Chinkapin oak or something. So because then they'd be like, well, it has to be New American white oak and all this shit.
Right.
You're gonna make me get into a fist fight in the parking lot one day. Is what's gonna happen.
That's how it works, man. I start trouble and then somebody else has to go with it.
Especially on his the bourbon you made before you left the other company.
Oh, the mic drop bourbon.
Yeah, that left. And then what made me think about it today was I was watching a podcast. And people were talking about taking sips out of the barrel. And then I thought about you, the way you said that people were taking sips out of the...
Yeah, out of the barrel as it was right after it went in the barrel. And that's what I was saying in that mic drop video too. Like, part of their marketing story was that it was, some crazy amount of angel share and evaporation, which is just complete bullshit. Those barrels were neither all the way full when we started, and we damn sure drank them down in the cellar. I mean, we hit those barrels hard as White Spirit when we were at Copper and Kings. So we've got another one in the H3 room right now that's a Lee Sinclair that's being finished in a mezcal barrel, and I'm determined that that's never getting put out. Too many people want it. So what happens is if you come to the distillery and you hang out and we're friends, we'll just tap that fucking barrel. We'll drain that motherfucker in the H3 room.
Alan, Chris was counting the holes today.
Oh, I bet he was. Yeah.
Yeah,
I could talk about that one a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. Justin knows honey shine. Yeah.
So one of the first thing that I ever distilled was actually a honey shine. I had a buddy down south, and I made 15 gallons of mead. So a little backstory with me, I got into homemade wine and mead making before I got into this.
$500 worth of honey.
Yeah, that's no shit. It was cheap honey. It's okay. So I took that down and ran that on a North Georgia still with a thumper with some help from one of my buddies. Brought that back. Alan's actually tried it. It's okay, but now that I've done other stuff and tried other things, I'm not too happy with it. But after that, honestly, if I was going to run honey again, I would do it like the last one Alan and I had done together. I think I done the stripping run and you done the doubling run, Alan. Is that how we did that?
I think so. Yeah.
But actually, it started out as a bochet. And if you're not familiar with that term, a bochet is a caramelized honey. So you go further than inverting the sugars. You actually caramelize and create some unfermentable sugars. Now, I didn't take that one as far as I wanted to, but it didn't ferment dry either. So I know there were some unfermentables in there. And honestly, that is probably one of the best honey shines, or I guess you'd call that a sugar shine, because honey is just a sugar source. That I've ever had. I was really proud of that one. So doing a bochet and caramelizing and creating some unfermentable sugars, honestly, and then running that through a still was pretty cool.
I think doing the bochet is the route. I decided to go with what we were talking about, Alan, with my medicinal mead, with my herbs, doing the bochet with the herbs in it. I think that's going to be the best route for that. I definitely don't have enough mead to distill it.
Right.
as much as I wish I could.
Well, the cool thing about the cool thing about a bochet is it'll hold up to a lot of those botanicals or medicines that you want to throw in there.
Mm-hmm. And then, am I going to leave the herbs in after making the bochet with them?
Yes, I would leave them in because I would treat it just like you would a Groot or a stone beer. They're gonna keep extracting. Very much in the same way that, it's kind of like, actually hopping and boiling your hops, and then leaving them behind for sure. So that wouldn't, I would definitely leave that in, but I think Justin and I've even talked about this before. So doing a bochet. So for those of you who aren't familiar with like a stone beer or Groot, that's a really, really old concept. And the concept is that you only had a pot that was big enough to boil so much water, but you had to make X amount of beer every year if you were Scandinavian, right? And so in order to get around that, what they do is they'd take a half barrel, and they'd put a false bottom in it. They'd line the bottom of it with juniper branches, and those juniper branches would flavor it to start with, but it'd also filter out all the grain, so you wouldn't have a fucking chunky ass beer. They'd put their grain in there. They'd convert it with a little bit of water they could boil in their small pots, and then in order to get the gravity up, they'd want to boil some of that water off. So what they'd do is they would take these stones, usually granite, put them into a fire with whatever wood they had, get these stones as hot as they could, and then drop them into the beer to evaporate it off. And we've done this several times and made whiskey out of it and thrown botanicals in at the same time. And it turns out fucking wonderful. Hold on just a second, guys. There's food. I got excited.
I thought that was a parakeet for a minute.
Fucking fried fucking cabbage. I ate a bird. I ate a fucking bird on the internet.
I thought it was a parrot. I was like, God damn, she got a parrot
legend.
But hell yeah.
That shit distills awesome. And I think you could do the same thing with bochet.
Yeah. And I'll say the stone beer, like the one that we done at Beck's Mill, that's the only thing that I've ever had that distills and smells and tastes the same exact way that it did the day that we were mashing in.
Mm-hmm.
Like to a T.
That's the beauty of it. I don't know why. I would think that a lot more of the traditional brewers would be doing stuff like that, especially putting in small stills and wanting to run like something like that. Because that's the earliest. I suspect that's what early whiskey in Ireland and Scotland was. It was exactly that. It wasn't, on the Irish side, you had the monks and they were making specific beers for distillation. On the north side, though, the Gaul side, they for sure saw all this distillation happening. They were like, hey, we make beer too. We just do it a little bit differently. What happens if we fucking distill this and do it this way? And I think that if you were in the right place at the right time in the British Isles, that's what whiskey was in the early days. So
one of my favorite things I've ever done is honey. It came out amazing. I didn't caramelize it or anything. I'll have to try that next time I can afford to do that run, because it's fucking expensive as shit.
Absolutely.
But it was amazing. Like, even I just put it in I made a mash, and it cost me the same price as
I saw that video. That's good.
And that video has 5 million views now, the small one on Facebook. And you know what all the views is everyone's bitching at me because I called it moonshine. I called it honey moonshine. And they got fucking mad, dude. That's fucking sugar shine, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a fuck about the shit, man. It just tasted good, though.
Back before I got in the legal industry, that's how I made my name here locally when I was selling shine at the farmer's market and shit. I was doing basic sugar shines. I was using our Lee Sinclair mash bill, but it was just, again, 1 pound of grain per gallon, basically 60% corn, 17 wheat, 13 oats, and 10 malt. But my trick was, because my shit was better than all their stuff, everybody would always wonder what the hell I was doing different. The only thing I was doing any different at that time, because I didn't know anything else. I didn't even know how to make a cereal mash at that time. The only thing I did different was we had an Amish family that came to the farmer's market every week, and they were like 15 kids in this family. And every kid in that family had something that kid did. They were responsible for, right? Well, 3 of the brothers kept beehives. And when I say they kept beehives, I mean they kept beehives, like hundreds of beehives. And I could literally buy a 50-gallon barrel of honey off these kids for $300 to $500, depending. The only difference between my sugar shine and everybody else's around here was I wasn't using sugar. I was using honey. That was the only difference.
Hell yeah.
So if I was going to do that again, and PhilBilly, you might like this because you were talking about the cost wise, like if you want to do a caramelized one, because like I said earlier, you do create some unfermentable sugar, so you're kind of wasting some of it as far as your alcohol goes, but you're getting more flavor. You could always, in my mind, caramelize, say you're doing, for ease of math, 10 pounds of honey, caramelize a quarter of it and caramelize it further than you would if you were going to make a bochet. So that way you have that, and then you could just add that into your ferment for that. So that way you're getting that caramelized flavor.
Use it like
because because I will say, so the difference between my 2 honey shines that I made, the first one was not caramelized, and Alan can kind of attest to this because he's had it. The honey was there, but it was just very, very minute. There wasn't a whole lot of honey flavor. The second one that I done, it had, and the honey came through heavy on it.
Really?
Yeah, and the second one was just clover honey. It wasn't anything like special
It was fantastic. Like if you go to Walmart and you have get those little, they look like little miniature jugs. That's what I used for my second one. I liked it, and also so I did it with just straight honey and cut it down, and then I also did some shit. What did I put that? Dried apricots.
Yeah.
That was good.
I'm doing this one with brambles and mulberries, and I already started the experiment, but ran into a problem. I was sanitizing the brambles and mulberries with Campton, and it seems like the seeds cracked open and restarted fermentation. And it
interesting.
I gotta get rid of all this, so I gotta collect some more berries for this.
Interesting. Yeah. What are you gonna do with it? I just pasteurize it.
I'm probably gonna freeze the juice and use it for something else.
Gotcha.
I'm definitely not just gonna throw it out. I don't throw anything out. I don't waste anything.
Nope. I don't either. The only thing I don't.
It doesn't smell good though. Whatever yeast is in there it's not. It's probably malolactic, I'd assume, because it's got to be super low in pH. It's just berry juice, you know.
Right.
I can't imagine it's very good, but I'll figure something out for it.
You might be getting some of that phenolic flavor from the seeds too.
Probably. I put some pectic in there, so.
Yeah. Then that phenolic flavor actually distills across really well as a white spirit too, because you hold on to more of what makes the fruit when it's ripe. So, but
so maybe a little bit in that thumper somewhere might might be good.
Little infusion. Yeah, I'm like you, man. I don't, when I'm at home, usually, unless we're just drunk and lazy, I don't throw much of anything out. I'll almost always find a way to redistill it, unless it's heads. And then I don't really fuck around with heads at home. The only thing I do with them is use them to start fires, or I'll use them. They'll actually burn in those Coleman lanterns, and they do a pretty good job.
I use them for extraction. I use them to extract things. That's about it.
Yeah. Randall, I'm curious, man. What all you got back there in them bad mo barrels, buddy?
Oh man, you want to see?
Yes, I got to see.
Okay, so for right now, I have. I don't know if you can see it. I got this one. The 175 is my bourbon, and then I don't know what that one is. 863 is a rum, and then I have these two. I don't know if you've ever seen the 1030 barrels.
1030. Yeah, I'm working with them now too.
Okay, they're a little smaller. I got this one. It's a French oak that had wine in it, and it has, what the hell does it have in it? Oh, it has my Irish whiskey in it, and then which is triple distilled, and then I have a wheat whiskey in a new barrel, and that's it for right now. I got the rye's fixing to go into one of them. I'm thinking about dumping the rum and putting the rye in the rum barrel. And then I have the Oregon oak barrel that I'm sipping on that sweet corn whiskey from Christopher, which is actually pretty good for 4 months old. It's pretty freaking good on that Oregon oak.
You just reminded me that I have that. I'm gonna go get a glass real quick. I'll be right back.
Absolutely. Let's share. I wish the rest of y'all could have some of this, because it's pretty good for a 4-month-old whiskey. And he uses Oregon oak, which is, he said it's a little spicier, almost like French oak, I guess. So it's pretty interesting. It's got a pretty good color on it, and the flavor, it's obviously a little green. It needs a little more time, but and I don't know what he means by sweet corn. I don't know if he used literal canned sweet corn or if he made a UJSSM or something like that, but the flavor is really good on it. So I'm excited.
So, are they going to continue to sell those barrels?
Okay, so Alan might know a little more than I do, but
from what I heard.
So here's what I was told by Christopher, who him and his partner are supposed to take it over, and they're going to get back into production. But the issue is there's a lot of things that Ben did that he can't do, like the Squarespace and the selling of them and stuff like that. So he's having a little bit of an issue with getting all the legality part of it back together. But he assured everybody that, before too long, obviously they're taking time to get over the loss and stuff like that. But they're for sure going to get back into it, because they have obviously a number of orders to fill. And then a bunch of other people like Alan and Jesse and myself that are just yelling at them to get more barrels out. So,
send more stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
No, they're already. I don't know if you saw or not. So he like you said, he lost access to all the digital stuff. Yeah. So they're working around that. Ben, I don't know if you saw it or not, but he did post that they built the first barrel yesterday or maybe today.
Okay.
So they are back in the building. We did find them sources for oak. I found them too, and then he found another source. And I know they just bought some oak, so it's headed that way now.
Awesome.
They'll probably still have problems keeping up, because Ben was at 200 plus barrels a month, and still couldn't keep up with what he was doing. But the cool thing is, for anybody out there listening, if you have some ingenuity and some engineering skills, and you go to the Bad Motivator website, or you go look at Jesse's video that he did with Ben, he literally shows you exactly how they were building these things. Yeah. And Wayne's probably going to punch me in the face for saying this, but Wayne and I have something like that we're going to do as well. So I think the cool thing is 1030 never messed with Bad Motivator. Bad Motivator never messed with 1030. 2 different size formats, same idea. If Wayne and I do this, we'll go a size up is what we'll do. And we'll probably, honestly, if we do it, we may stick to just used oak, honestly.
Oh, that's nice.
So, because I'm much more interested in used oak than I am new oak in the first place. So, Joe, yes, I have tried to recharge a small barrel after the first use, and depending on what kind of barrel it is, the smaller they are, the harder they are to put back together is what I'd fucking say.
Yeah.
I've had far more failures at that than I've had success, for sure. But some of them, if you're talking like a 10 or a 15 gallon, a lot of times you can drive the rings off and take the head out of it, and just go in and take I take like a one of those, I don't know how you call it, like a scraper you use on the bottom of a lawnmower deck. I take one of those and just scrape the existing char level off all the way around, and then hit it with MAP gas and rechar it that way. Or you can take some heads and throw in there and set it on fire and let it char that way too. Now, that's not, again, when I'm at home doing shit and not being super scientific, a lot of times I'm about half fucking drunk when I'm doing it. So, it might be a 2 char, it could be a fucking 5 char. Who knows?
It's burnt. That's all we need.
Right. Smells like marshmallows. Yep.
So I do want to touch on something. We talked about it a while ago, and I didn't get a chance to ask. You guys were talking about sugar shine and malted whiskeys, and people doing malted whiskeys doing really well with that at home versus someone trying to do bourbon. Do you think that's because, like, if you're using a distiller's malt plus some maybe roasted malts, because of the ease of conversion for something like that versus trying to do something that's more bourbon related that's at least 51% corn and then trying to convert that? Do you think that's where the ease or the people that are doing well with that malted stuff is coming in?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's because people don't realize that corn, if you're used to working with corn, it's not a big deal. But if you're not, and you're getting new to the game and you've just done a UJSSM or something like that, you don't realize that you have to gelatinize it. And then you got to do all this other shit to it. So it's like using malt is just so much easier. You bring it up to 145, 150, let it sit for 30 minutes, drain it out, you're good to go. Or put it on the grain, however you want to do it. So, it just makes it so much easier.
The other trick to it is that a lot of the guys that started doing malt at home like that, they were brewers, like you said.
Yeah.
So they already have equipment set up to handle malt and to be able to lauter it, and I don't know how many people here have tried to lauter anything other than malt. But I can tell you that it's all, you can make it work, but it is a fucking cunt is what it is.
It is.
I think I remember you trying to lauter something this last winter, Alan, but I can't remember what it was. I knew you fought
rye.
with it.
It was that stupid rye.
Right.
Is what it was. That fucking rye malt step mash bullshit. And Wayne is set up to do that, and he makes it look so easy in his fucking videos. I just wish I was there one time when he was recording, so I'd be like, see, I knew you were fucking editing stuff out of this. Because it ain't fucking easy.
Alan was mad at work for like a week. I know, and that's what it was. I guarantee it.
Well, the problem was, it was on a Sunday, right? And my Sundays are sacred. It's shit around the house or hanging out with you guys or hanging out with the family, whatever. And so I was going to work on it, and I was like, this is a rye whiskey. I don't have to go to a high temperature. If I use the old Pennsylvania step mash thing, which I understand the process for, and I have the equipment with the Dr. Gratis, like altogether, this should be an hour-long project. Fuck that. It turned into like 10 fucking hours dealing with this shit. Lost my whole Sunday.
This is supposed to be Sunday fun day. There's nothing fun here.
Nothing fun here at all. Nothing. And then I fucking about half-ass scorched it the first time too. So I ended up, I distilled it like a dumbass because I'm an idiot. And I was like, oh, it'll be all right. And I got done with it and I smelled it and I tasted it. Of course, I've been drinking, so I couldn't really tell. And I fucking let it set. I came out there and I tried it the next day. I'm like, this is fucking trash. This is absolute just garbage. Giant waste of time and resources and energy. So yeah, that happens.
Alan, I do want to tell you something. Oh, go ahead.
A lot of people don't realize that sometimes in doing this shit, you will kick a barrel over in your fucking driveway and just let it fucking roll down, because sometimes shit don't turn out the way you expect it to.
Oh, you ain't wrong, man. You ain't wrong. And you know what? That's a thing too. I think that moonshiners and home distillers, if they're looking at legal guys, it don't get better on the legal side either. Oh my God. It gets so much fucking worse because there's so much more equipment that you're dealing with. Like, there's nothing worse than like a chiller breaking and you call the guy and you're like, can you come look at this fucking chiller? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll be there in a few minutes. Fucking 4 hours later, you're like, where is this motherfucker? And why isn't he here? Or
we don't deal with that at all.
My favorite is
talking about, Alan.
Well, we're going to explain it for everybody because it's a fun conversation to have. People don't realize that this happens in a distillery. So if you're a rural distillery and you're in an area where there haven't been legal distilleries since before Prohibition, and you don't hire people to come in from the local city that deal with distilleries to set up your shit, just go ahead and expect that everything is going to be fucked up to some degree, especially your boiler system. My favorite is something goes wrong with the boiler. And over the years, I've taught myself with boilers, like I roughly usually have an idea of what's going on and how to fix it. But it's because I've had to, because every boiler guy I've ever fucking dealt with does the same thing. He walks in, he walks around, he looks at all the liquid levels on everything. He turns the valve here and there, lets a little liquid out or whatever. He smacks something with a hammer. And then he makes up some bullshit lingo about the blaja haja isn't doing what it's supposed to fucking do. And then he goes, I got to go to this other job. I'll be back later. Motherfucker doesn't know any more about it than I do. He's just making shit up. 100% whole cloth, just making shit up, just not to have to deal with me.
Yep.
Just to look for something broken. Just look for the obvious.
Yeah, so I don't, like, that's my last ditch effort at this point, like with the boiler. If something's wrong with the boiler, I'll work on it for 3 hours before I call this fucking guy.
Yep.
Because there's a good chance I'm going to figure it out. And there's a good chance that if he comes in, he's just going to make up some shit to make it seem like he knows what he's talking about. And then he's going to follow it up with, well, I don't know what to do about it. What I fucking hired you for. Yeah.
Here's your bill.
Fucking
Well,
dick.
it's like having a wire with alligator clips connecting wires on the chiller.
That's never happened. That has
Never happened.
That has never once happened, ever.
Alan, I do want to show you something because I got it today, and you know him. I'm not sure if everybody else here does, but Connor Kelly, he's a legal distiller. He worked, I can't remember where he worked at in Utah, but he is working at another distillery now. But he sent me a couple of these. That's their bourbon. He sent me a honey bourbon and their spice rum. It's actually going into the raffle on Tuesday and stuff, Alan. But I do want to try to get a hold of him and get some of that stuff to do a tasting. Unfortunately, I can't open those, but they're freaking. I love the bottles because they're super simple.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
They're cool as shit.
That is a cool.
Yeah.
Sticker.
Yeah, get with him and get some samples, and we'll bring you on and him on Distillers Talk and do it on Distillers Talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be a blast.
Hey, Phil, do you mind too? And Justin, only if you want to. But so Justin does have something coming up this week, and something that he's raising some money for. If it's okay with Phil to kind of talk about that.
You guys could talk about whatever you want. You could send people to your site, your page. Everyone here could you know what I'm saying? Say whatever you want, man.
Onlyfeet.com.
Yeah,
I'm going there after this is over.
Daddy's hungry. Send money.
Only Toe Jam. That's what it is. So Phil, I'll send you some information on it also if you don't mind posting it. So my wife Tiffany had breast implants put in about 12 years ago, and she's been having some issues with them the last few years. It kind of got chalked up to stress from work, things like that. We both worked in EMS, and I worked in the fire department, but it kind of got chalked up to stress from work, things like that. Well, she got out of that job and kept having issues, and she finally, her doctor had said, hey, this could be an issue with your breast implants because of this thing called breast implant illness. Not so much them leaching out because they don't use solid silicone implants anymore, but they're still silicone encased, and that silicone is causing issues. So she's went through the processes of some testing and things like that. They also found a couple of growths on her right breast, and one of them has kind of gotten a little bit bigger or multiplied, but still non-cancerous is what they've said. But she's gone through the process of finding somewhere to actually get these removed. We're going to be going to a surgeon down in Jupiter, Florida, but her surgery date is actually January of 2025. That's how far back they're pushed. Now, the thing is, we've got part of it paid off right now and got our spots set up. We're working on getting the rest of it paid off. Once it's paid off, she can get bumped up as far as surgery date goes, which is what we're hoping. So we're actually we're doing a fundraiser there at work. It'd be the 18th, so this next coming Tuesday, starting at 4 o'clock until we've said 9 o'clock, but if it goes further than that, we'll be there. We're doing some cool stuff there, barbecue, some some silent auctions. I've taken some of my collection as far as bottles go, and also have gotten some really cool donations as far as bottles go that I'm doing a raffle. I actually have started doing online ticket sales for that. And I'll send that to you as well, Phil, if you wouldn't mind posting that. I've got like a Google sheet that shows exactly what all is in there. Actually, within the last how long have I done the online? 2 days, I think.
Yeah.
I've been doing the online stuff for 2 days. I'm going to cut the online sales off Monday, so that way I make sure I have time to fill everybody's tickets out. And then Tuesday we're going to do on-site sales for the raffle. But within the last few days, I've raised almost $700, I think, just on online ticket sales for that. I'm also raffling off what I've finally decided to call the Spirits of French Lick experience, to where somebody's going to get to come in and hang out with Alan and I, run the still, mash in whatever that person wants to do. They're going to get a bottle from out front of their choosing.
Clean the toilet.
Clean the toilet, yes.
It's a
You're
privilege.
going to do yeah, exactly. You're going to do what Pedro hired in to do.
Yes.
You're going to get a bottle from out front. A good friend of mine actually donated 2 bottles from Starlight that he picked. And then also he is doing a pick at French Lick in September, and he said the winner of that can also have a spot on that pick. They're going to be picking a high proof apple brandy. So there's a lot going on. I'd appreciate anybody that can either come or possibly donate to it would be awesome. My main thing is I want to get the surgery kind of paid off, so that way we can maybe bump her surgery date up. I know she's fairly anxious about it. She's got a lot of stuff going on, that I'm just kind of trying to be there for her and hoping everybody else can also.
Hell yeah. I'll post a link on all my stuff. Just send me a link to whatever, if you got a page or whatever, and I'll post it everywhere.
Hell yeah.
I'll send the event page to you. The event page will be like the Facebook event for the actual live event, and then I should be able to send you my most recent post that has the actual the raffle stuff for the bottles. There's a general raffle. There's a grand prize raffle, which that's the one that I'm telling everybody to go for, because it's some stuff from Spirits of French Lick that you'll probably never see again. Or if you do see it, it'll be either under a different label or a different blend or something like that. Hard Truth actually donated a 4-person ATV tour over their facility. And shoot, what's the other thing that's being raffled? There's one other thing. I don't know. There's one other thing that I'm raffling off as well. So, but I'll send that all to you.
Hell yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. And you guys keep an eye for that and check that out. Dixie really wanted her question answered.
Yeah.
So if anybody could give her an opinion, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So for me, with what you have on hand, the obvious one that comes to mind there for me would be the barley, but barley can also, as a white spirit, sometimes go a little bit towards, this sounds terrible, but towards dog food, as far as the aroma goes. So if I were going to do it, I'd probably use cracked corn and a little bit of barley, go a little bit to the softer and sweeter side. I'll tell you, peach brandy and wheat works really, really well together, especially malted wheat if you can get a hold of it, because malted wheat's got a little apricot flavor to it anyways. But barring that, the cracked corn, maybe like 90% cracked corn, 10% barley. I'm presuming that I don't know if that's malted barley or rye barley, but either one will work. If it's raw barley, it actually worked really well, because raw barley kind of comes off as like a slight green apple. So you might be able to, if it's just raw barley, you might be able to do 100% raw barley with the peaches, and make that work out good. So. But.
Alan, with that, do you think you could do, if you did like a malted barley? I know sometimes it does the dog food thing, but if you would either double distill that or maybe even triple distill just the barley, and then go in and blend that with the peach, because I know a lot of times if you look at Irish, the triple distilled stuff, you get a lot of that apricot stuff, or even the honey that would go well with the peach.
Yeah. Yeah. So you talking about doing them, mashing them individually, then distilling and then blending. Yeah, you can do it that way too. It's more controllable that way.
Yeah.
That's what I think we clean the toilet if I get to follow you all around in between cleanings. All right.
Hey,
we'll give you other fun jobs from time to time for sure, Chris.
Monday is cleaning day. We clean the toilet.
Butterbean from TikTok, y'all.
Yeah, Monday is Alan being obsessive compulsive fucking asshole day is what Monday is.
It's red lids everywhere day is what that is. Fuck you, Alan.
You cocksucker. We have these stupid little fucking red, like they're like little red cups that they put in empty barrels when they ship to you. And they're the right color of red that, like, no matter where they're setting, you can fucking see them. And we don't need them. We get like thousands of them every year from the empty barrels that we have. And this fucking cocksucker never throws anything away. Ever throws anything away. He just leaves shit laying wherever it's at, but he purposely leaves these fucking red cups in places he knows where I'll see them. And I'm like a fucking bull in a china shop on Monday anyways, because I don't want to be there. And I walk in, I'm cleaning shit up, and I'm looking around going, why the fuck is there a red fucking cup on top of the fucking ice machine?
I filled a box with, like, one of our spirits boxes with these red cups and set it up on the door so when he walked in, it would dump on him one day just because.
It worked. Moonshine,
I got it.
Oh, go ahead, PhilBilly.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a question for you, Alan. Where can people buy your liquor at?
Mm-hmm.
Not Texas.
Yeah, it's in Texas.
It's in Texas, all right.
But not necessarily close to you. Liquor King would be the main outlet, but and they should be, if you have a Liquor King anywhere near you, they should be able to ship between stores. But
no.
Gotcha. But they're actually, man, they're up there with fucking New Orleans for the stuff they bring in from us as far as like the amount and number of single barrels. We have widespread distribution in Indiana. We have distribution in Kentucky. We've got a little bit in Tennessee, a little bit in New York, a little bit in New Jersey, Illinois, Missouri. I'm going to have to check. We had it in Missouri for a while, but I'm not sure we still have that. Definitely Louisiana, South Louisiana in particular, New Orleans and Baton Rouge in particular, North Carolina, a little bit in South Carolina, but those are like barrel picks. It's not a widespread thing there. The control states are hard to fucking finagle and deal with.
Alabama?
I don't know. Do we have Alabama? I don't know.
I thought we had Alabama because I had somebody on
Mississippi. We do. Misano's in Mississippi's the real big, another real big one for us. That's a huge account for us.
Yeah, because that's where Sean Consley is in with.
Mm-hmm. And then Canada, we're apparently pretty fucking popular in Canada, from what I understand. So I don't know how. I know how it worked because we had some followers on Instagram from Canada, but how other people in Canada found us, I don't know for sure. But yeah,
that one throws me for a loop, by the way, because I've got some friends in Canada before I started working with you, Alan, and they were telling me how much bourbon is up there as far as price wise, and what would cost like a Evan Williams white label, the bottled and bonds down here is what, $20. It's like $50-$60 up there. I couldn't imagine what our product would cost up there.
Well, that was one of the first conversations we actually had with the distributor. So my understanding of it is that you're basically going to pay the same for anything low shelf up there as what you pay for something high shelf most of the time.
Yeah.
So because the way the control laws work, we've looked at, and I need to follow up on this. We have a pretty good following thanks to a couple people actually in the Netherlands, and so there was some conversation of exporting into the Netherlands, which is apparently for such a small country, it's disproportionately bourbon centric. So, our intent was never to become a huge distillery and get to 50 states and be in a bunch of different countries. The goal was always like Spirits of French Lick, Dustin. The goal was always to be kind of a cult status sort of thing, right? And we've kind of gotten that point. Like the people that like us really like us, and they'll fucking, people drive hours and hours and hours away to come pick up our stuff at the distillery. They'll buy cases and they'll ferry it back to wherever they're from to take it back to their buddies. So we've kind of become, I joke that we become like the first Evil Dead movie of distillers. Like it was an accidental fucking success, but 15 states for us is a pretty good pretty good stretch in the market. And I think because of the style of distilling that I'm into, and the way that's tied culturally and culinarily, it seems like there's a certain swath of the South and Southeast into a little bit of the South Midwest, and then certain parts of Canada. And I have to presume that the Canadians are all Rush fans and or Trailer Park Boys fans, or they're not going to understand our whiskey. So
here you go, Alan.
Yeah, I made Justin go find that one.
Texas.
What it reminds me of is kind of like, you guys remember when Three Floyds? You guys drink beer?
Yeah, I know who Three Floyds is for sure. That's definitely a Indiana mainstay for sure.
So when they was first, I don't know if it was when they first, but there was a huge thing where like people would go and try and find Three Floyds.
They still do.
Stand in line. Yeah. It was real crazy there for a while. It's kind of like, it's more plentiful now. Like there's more available, I guess, here. But here it was like everyone was trying to get it, couldn't get it, and that's what it kind of reminds me of.
We just had a conversation.
I need to come out.
Yeah, come by sometime. We had a conversation about Three Floyds the other day that still goes on in Indiana, where people will literally go from liquor store to liquor store, and you'll be standing there doing a tasting or something, and some dude will just randomly open the door and be like, "Hey, y'all got any fucking gumball head?" No, and then they just shut the door and walk away.
I can buy that shit every day here in Washington.
Oh, I guarantee it.
They have it on the shelf every day.
Mm-hmm.
I like the gumball head.
Yeah. Maybe there needs to be a beer secondary market so I can retire.
Start bootlegging some beer. Yeah,
absolutely.
When a couple years ago, you could sell Three Floyds like crazy. Mm-hmm. There was a secondary market for it, like there is with bourbon now. There was a secondary market for like zombie dust. Mm-hmm. Like you could get fucking some money out of a 6-pack of zombie dust, dude.
It's become crazy to me from just our distillations at Spirits of French Lick after going into year 8 now. Some of those limited edition things we did and some of those single barrels out front, they pop up on secondary market. And they pop up, really? Yeah, and they pop up in Kentucky on bars, because in Kentucky you can buy vintage spirits, quote unquote. They pop up in Kentucky on bars where bars have bought those bottles from private people. So and every time I see it, I have a moment of what the fuck is, how did we get to that point at just
being 8
years old?
Be like the Unpretentious or the Right Way or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've seen a lot of that stuff pop up, and they don't go for crazy prices, but they'll go like Unpretentious. Literally, I've seen a bottle of it for $4.50 before. So
shit.
So yeah. What's the do you have bourbons and like what are your main products? Mm-hmm. And how long do you age them?
So we kind of have 4 pillars. So it's bourbon, brandy, botanical spirits, and then American whiskeys. So American whiskeys being like rye, single malt, etc. But it's kind of a ready, fire, aim mentality as well. So we've done a little bit of everything. We do absinthe, we do gin, we do aquavit, we've done some eau de vie, we do weird, unique finishes, like we did an apple brandy that was finished in a smoky Isla barrel. So it's really a little bit of everything overall. And the maturation period just depends. When we started, we put out Lee Sinclair at 2 years old, but that had a lot to do with the aging room that we had at the time that we still have, which is more like a brandy cellar. So it doesn't get real hot, doesn't get real cold. It never stops aging all year round. So we get 4 full seasons every year of complete in and out movement within the wood, which is what you need for great maturation in a bourbon. So we're able to do 2-year-old stuff, but our main impetus is bottled and bonds, brandies and bourbons and rye. So 4 years old, product of one distiller and one season, defined as either spring or fall, meeting all the other requirements of bourbon, and being 100 proof. And the goal there was that, bottled and bond still had some connotation of quality. That's you fucking right, Michael. Yes. They better not be fucking Nickelback fans. That's for sure. Nickelback fans don't need to drink my bourbon because they have no taste anyway. Stick to vodka.
If somebody wanted to buy a whole barrel, like, how they do store picks. Mm-hmm. If somebody wanted to buy a whole barrel, are you guys open to selling whole barrels of your bourbon?
Yep, I would say that that's probably 50% of our business is single barrels. I mean, we do a ton of single barrels every year.
We just finished up a list of what, 15 or 20.
Mm-hmm. In fact, if we really wanted to, and honestly, as a business decision, it would be smart. We could probably flip everything over to just single barrel business and sell everything as single barrel. So, for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm getting a bottle of 17-year-old Four Roses here soon. it's fucking gonna be. I can't wait to try it. I swear.
Four Roses would probably be one of the only bourbons that I would want to have at 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Because I think they do some really cool stuff. Yeah.
And how I'm getting it is somebody bought a whole barrel that was left over. And I'm not going to say what company, but there's a company that's pretty new. And while they was getting started, they had to source liquor kind of way that people do with MGP.
Mm-hmm.
And they was sourcing liquor for Four Roses. And they have a couple left over. Their liquor now is ready. And they have some left over, and somebody went and bought one of them, and now they're pumping it out. It's fucking single barrel, and I can't wait to get it.
Yeah, that's
only get one.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing that I'm really proud of, though, is that at our distillery. So we laid out rules I laid out rules when I started there, because they wanted to make straight up sweetened liqueurs and stuff like that. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people at home do that, and a lot of distilleries do that. But they already had a sweet wine company, and I told them up front, I'm like, all right, do you want to sell one bottle of sweetened liqueur and lose sales on 3 bottles of wine for the same price, or do you want to make bourbon and rye and apple brandy and get attention from people who are really into spirits? And so we laid that out as a plan. And then the next plan was never, ever buy. Well, let me rephrase that, because it got changed over time. Never, ever sell anything from MGP. And it's not because we don't love MGP, because in the state that we're in, of course, they kept the lights on for everybody after Prohibition, and I respect the hell out of them. Yep. And we only ever bought one product and bottled it. We did bourbon was 60% our 2-year-old stuff, 40% Wyoming whiskey. I don't think I'm supposed to say that still, but it's whiskey from Wyoming. There's like 2 distilleries there, so fucking you'd figure it out anyways. We aged for 2 extra years, then we blended. But I did buy, and I don't know if Justin's ever tried this or not. We'll have to hunt it down one day in the next couple weeks. I did buy 7 or 8 MGP barrels, and we sat on them for a year, and we flipped them for twice the price, but I kept 1 barrel. They were 3 years old when they came in, and that was in 2017. So it's got some age setting on it. I don't know what'll ever happen to it, but
so I want to try that
and get rid of it for you,
right?
Yeah.
So Alan, there's something that I actually tried today whenever Chris was there, because we tried some stuff in the barrel room, and then I took them up to the rick houses, and I was actually going to drill a barrel of Pendleton, but I seen some barrels and I didn't realize what it was until after I drilled it. So there's some old barrels up there from another distillery that has multigrain in it. Have you tried that since you put it in a barrel?
Oh yeah.
Holy shit.
That's the stuff that I told you that's going to sit there until it's 10.
Yeah. I realized that after I tried it.
Yep.
That is phenomenal.
Yep. That's all Solaris system. So you'll find very few barrels that are from the same company.
Yep.
In there. So
yeah.
And that's the goal, is to make that a 10-year blend, and then to be able to release a version of it every year for the next 10 years after that. So
yep.
And it's all used oak. There's no new oak in there. That's all used oak. So but I'm curious. So I have Moonshine. We've only communicated just a little bit. I'm curious. What's your background? Yeah. Where'd you come from? How'd you get into distillation? And I know you're obviously interested in I don't know if you're into Odinism or if you're into specifically more than the nature sort of path, but you're obviously into that. You're obviously into alchemy. So I'm all about spirituality and distillation. I'm curious.
I mean, I started out with extractions. I started out in the extractions doing, kind of growing cannabis in the cannabis industry, doing extractions like that, and also herbalism and other kinds of, botanical extractions for about 10 years, and never really occurred to me that I had been doing chemistry for so long, and, I have the knowledge to distill. Why haven't I? And then, prior I'd been making wine for about 4 years, just some, low level closet wine, just juice, sugar, baker's yeast, nothing fancy. Yeah. And then just figured somebody mentioned to me, why aren't you doing something with that? Why aren't you, making some liquor with it, doing something further? So I did my first distillation on a still. I think PhilBilly's post about the little pickle jar still, and I was like, man, it's that easy to put together a fucking still. I built my own little pressure cooker still and cooked off my first batch, and my buddy of mine thought I had done it before, didn't help me at all or whatever, and then took a sip or whatever, and I was like, yeah, how do you like my first batch? He's like, I'd have helped you if I knew that was your first batch. Like, this is your first batch? This is really fucking good, Junior Sutton. You need to fucking do something with this. I was like, all right, well, shit. So I've been at it for I'm on my second year now.
Well, very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If you're watching this, don't try the pickle still. You will fuck your shit up.
Funny story about the pickle still, by the way. So Justin knows that at lunchtime when I eat, I sit down at my desk and I'll watch like Still It, or I'll watch different distilling videos. Do you remember that, Justin? Fucking,
oh yeah.
I pull up the video and it's the fucking pickle still. And Justin, he sees it, he's sitting kind of off to the side of me. He goes, "Is that a fucking pickle jar?" And he goes, "What the fuck?" And I was like, I had the same reaction, but I couldn't get it out fast enough. He said it before I could fucking say it. I was like, yeah, it looks like a pickle jar on a fucking stove is what it looks like.
You had the same reaction as I did trying to catch arms on fire.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a story for off the air.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a professional. I'm a professional redneck. I fuck shit up. I blow shit up on purpose all the fucking time. Don't try anything like that at home. You will fuck your kitchen up. Your wife will be mad. You might catch some shit on fire, but I'm a professional. So
that's what I tell people all the time about even basic old school premises like with absinthe. Listen, the maceration is at 140 degrees Fahrenheit with an open top still. And while I do it in videos over top an open flame, if you do that shit, you're an idiot. If you do that shit, you're asking for it. As somebody who's flashed that off more than once, you're just fucking retarded. I do it all the time, but don't do it. It's just...
Yeah, I've had a whole closet in flames before doing stupid shit with extractions. I definitely say the same thing. Don't do what I do.
No.
Any tips on small barrel aging at home, all grain spirits? That's a good question.
So... Go ahead, Alan.
No, you go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
So I've done some small barrel stuff at home. If I was going to do it again, I would either barrel half of what I have and blend that in back with the new make that I kept back, because small barrel, depending on how small you're going, you're going to over oak and you're not going to get that micro oxidation. Or something that I've done here at home is I've had a small barrel. And Alan's had this before. I didn't do it with something that I made, but I did it with another spirit. What was that? Benchmark Foolproof, just because I like that one. I did a red wine in a small barrel for 2 or 3 months, dumped that wine out, and then put that in there. So I think a lot of times if you're going to be using a small barrel, use it as a finishing barrel or use it as a blending product.
Yeah, I agree. And my big advice with the small barrels at home is don't fuck with gimmick barrels, guys. If it's under 15 gallons and it doesn't come from a reputable cooperage who can tell you either if it's used barrel, what distillery it came from before and exactly what it had in it, and or they can't tell you how old and how long that wood has been air seasoned, then it better be air seasoned, not kiln dried. Stay the fuck away from it, because nothing good is going to come out of it. The only company that made anything smaller than 15 gallons that I know of that was really worth the time and effort was Ann Gray Cooperage in Indiana, and they're out of business now. It's one of the reasons why I love the bad motivator stuff, because Ben figured out a thing for small barrels that worked, and it worked based on surface area, and he's using 48-month air-seasoned oak, right? Guys, that's something that's why I encouraged everybody to go after bad mo barrels, even though they're hard to get. That's something we can't get 48-month-old air-seasoned oak at work. We can't even get guaranteed 24-month air-seasoned at work. But the trick, don't waste your money on shitty barrels. if you do nothing else, I'll throw a resource out there to you guys. If you want 15-gallon barrels, because that's the first size that you get to, that's a pretty legitimate size that usually comes from a reputable cooperage, and you don't mind them being used. They've either had bourbon or corn whiskey in them. Wood Hat Spirits in Missouri does sell their used barrels. I'm not going to quote a price to you from it. I know what my price is, but you can reach out to them a lot of times and buy barrels from them. And they are fantastic barrels, and they've had fantastic spirits in them before. But otherwise, the Bad Mo stuff is awesome. The 1030 stuff that I've seen so far, now I haven't got to put anything in them myself for getting samples, so I have samples coming. That stuff seems awesome. And I think there's a lot of levity there. And so this whole thing's about community. I had this thought too, Randall. I was just thinking about this. So with the Bad Mo thing, what I'd love to see with people with Bad Mo or 1030 is, as people age stuff in those barrels, if you have a group of distillers that have those barrels, and you know that the other guys or gals a pretty good distiller, there's no reason not to be kicking those barrels back and forth for people to use for finishing. Just trade barrels back and forth.
Awesome. Yeah,
that'd be a really cool program.
Yeah.
So tips on aging used chips. So it's just me. I'm very, very picky. Randall probably feels the same way. Chips are not worth the time or effort. They typically are low quality wood. They're typically just shredded up shit that the cooperage had on hand that they swept up off the floor. They over extract super fast. They're super tannic. There's
charm. You have to use them.
Yep. There's no. Yeah. If you have to use them, definitely charm. Or if you can age them yourself, that would help some. Where you can, if you're going to play around with that kind of stuff, stick with blocks or spirals. They seem to work a whole lot better.
Bigger, yeah.
I'm sure Randall probably does something like this too. When I do wood like that, and so what I tend to use is once used barrels that I get from friends, and I cut them up or buy wood like that. A lot of French oak and stuff.
What I have now.
Mm-hmm.
Single-use Old Forester barrel is what I have now.
Hell yeah,
That's saves from a single-use Old Forester barrel.
It's a good choice, and don't try to rush it, guys. Listen, you're never going to get the effect out of chips or any of that stuff that you're going to get out of a barrel. It's not going to happen. You're infusing wood
Shake it
flavor.
often and keep opening it. You get that micro-oxidation in there as well.
Aerated. I bought a fish tank aerator. That works really well. You can use the sonic cleaning shit. Works okay, but it's not. It's that you don't listen. You're not finishing it in sonic aging. That's a good way to preload oak into something.
Extract, yeah.
But what I like to do is I will heavily load wood into it when I start up, and if I look at something and I say I need 2 pieces of stave to go into this jar to be a heavy load, that would be twice the wood that it would need overall. I'll put that in there. I let it set for a month before I even ever go back to it. I try it at a month. If I don't like it, I let it set for another month or 2 after that, because the stave's not going to extract the way that chips do. There's not as much surface area. After 2 or 3 months, I pull one half of that out. I set that shit back up there, and I let it set for 8 or 9 months. And then I start aerating it with the fish tank aerator, or pour it back and forth, open it up, pour it back and forth, or all those things have some merit to them, but it ain't an overnight thing. It doesn't. It ain't going to improve your liquor.
It's not a barrel.
Yeah,
it's not a barrel.
Yeah,
it's not a barrel.
I use it as a test. Like, you got something. Like, sometimes I'll make some liquor, and it's good, and you're like, how would that be on wood? So I'll take a quart and I'll put like some charred oak in there, and I'll let it sit for 8 weeks, and then I'll try it. And if it's great, I'm like, okay, now I could make that mash bill, put it in a barrel, and I would like it. Because if I like it on aged in a quart jar for 8 weeks, I'm gonna love it in a fucking barrel.
It gives you an idea of where it's headed. Yeah, absolutely.
And I've done maple syrup once, and then I fucking put it on sugar maple wood, and I was going to try and keep the color light, and then I tasted it, and I was like, fuck this. I was like, I paid too much money for this maple syrup to not like it. I mean, it was okay. So what I did then is I took the fucking sugar maple out, and I put white oak in it, and I let it sit for even longer, and it came out way better, way better.
I have ruined so much liquor over the years trying to fuck around with chips and stuff. I'll tell you a story. So another legal distiller friend of mine, a pretty big name, he had a lot of oak alternative or a lot of barrel alternatives sitting around his distillery. And one day he pulled up, he had his car with him. His car was squatting, and he had totes and totes of chips and box after box of very high end wine staves. And I was super excited for two reasons. I was super excited, A, because those wine staves are fucking fantastic. And a lot of them were French oak, and I knew I could use those. I got super excited about the wood chips because I was like, well, now I got a way to start the fucking wood stove this winter. Right? That's what they got used for. That's what almost all of them did. The other ones are getting ready. What I've got left, I've got a tote left. I'm getting ready to grow some fucking wine cap mushrooms on because fuck it, they need to be used for something.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but otherwise, I wouldn't. The chips, I mean, staves are easy enough to get nowadays. You know, you can look around and find some of these places that deal in used barrels, and sometimes that you can, if you know somebody that deals in used barrels, you can get staves for free. They're out there. You know, there's no shortage of used oak. There's a shortage of new oak. So, you know, and nothing against anybody that wants to age on chips. I'm just saying, if you really want an experience, it's better than just white dog infused with a little bit of wood sugar.
Yeah.
Go for staves and be patient. I mean, again, you're not going to imitate a barrel, but I'll tell you, you play around with that oak, and if you have at least a couple varieties of oak, like you're playing around with the old Forester staves, those are great. If you can get a piece of a French oak stave somewhere and play with that, after 8 or 9 months,
I threw a little bit of sugar maple in there with it.
Yep. After 8 or 9 months, you'd be surprised what you can pull off of it. It's never going to be a barrel, but it can be cool and interesting. So
yeah.
So Alan or anybody else, you're talking about the micro-oxidization and everything. So you have those food saver that makes them that you can pull a vacuum on a mason jar.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about putting chips in a jar of alcohol and then putting that under vacuum and pulling it, letting it set for a few days, then taking it off the vacuum, let it set for a few days, and then back and forth that way?
I think you're still going to pull.
Gonna enhance it. Yeah, it's gonna mean you're gonna pull more out of it.
One of the other things that Bad Motivator was working on, and they've done this with Jesse from Stillet, and hopefully they'll offer it wider to the public, but they were doing blocks of wood. I don't know what, have you seen them, Randall? They're like 2 inches across and a couple inches long. Yep, that right there. And they have that. Yep, those are awesome.
This is the Garyona.
Yep, and that's 10-year air seasoned oak right there, guys.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Fucking awesome.
The only thing with this, you have to toast it. It's not toasted or charred, so you make sure you do that. Because I did one and I just threw the damn wood in it because I was so excited. I was like, yes, I got a steak. I threw it in there and I was like, it's not doing anything. So you know, I got too excited. I've had to pull it out and toast it. But yeah, no, these things work great. And what I would say, if you're doing like a half gallon or whatever, I would even cut it in half. You don't even need the whole stave because, I mean, that's a lot of oak. That's a lot of oak, and it's going to influence it a whole lot. But yeah, that's what I use a lot. And again, it's never going to mimic a barrel, but you're going to get some good wood sugar and stuff out of it. So
on the new American oak, I do 2 of those to 2.5 to 3 gallons is what I throw on there. And then again, after a month or up to 3 months, I'll pull half of it out and then let it set another 9 months on that other piece. And it does great. And he also, unfortunately, you know, he sent that package the day before he passed away, but they have Amburana versions of those too. With Amburana is the one wood that I will say you can use chips and do okay. But Amburana is a wood that you have to keep pulled back as well, because Amburana will give fucking deer urine fucking smell if you go too far. It gets funky quick.
I think it'd be cool to take one of those Amburana ones and do kind of like we do at work, or even if you didn't want to use the Bad Mo Amburana barrel, but you do Amburana chips or even the Amburana barrel, and then move it over to something else and let it tone it down a little bit.
I got a buddy that just gave me. I'm sorry. My bad.
No, go ahead.
I thought you was done. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead. Finish your up.
No. I was going to say I'm curious to see y'all's answers on this pecan wood thing, because I've got a question about a different type of wood. But you go ahead, then we can get into that.
I got a buddy who just the other day brought me a jar, and he put it on some wood just for a couple days. And he was like, I forget what kind of wood it was, but he's like, try that. And it was very like like it was on there a couple days. I tried it and it was like cinnamon and fucking. It's like cinnamon toast crunch, but it wasn't toast flavored.
Yeah,
is that what that is?
That's Amburana.
It was
absolutely
kind of oily on the palate. Yeah, yep, that's Amburana.
Yeah.
And
So
it's like cinnamon toast crunch, son.
It doesn't take
good.
long. It doesn't take long.
The crazy thing about Amburana, and Alan, is it okay to name drop a distillery on here? I'm not talking trash, but just
yeah.
Okay,
you know how I am. They know how I feel about it. So.
Yeah. So Starlight does Amburana a whole lot, and they call it a cigar batch. Now, I'd had one of the first releases of Amburana, their cigar batch, and I didn't like it. It was way too much. Alan had some of that one of that bottle that I had. But I've had other releases that they've done, and they're on like their 5th or 6th use, and I'm starting to like it because it's super, super light. It's more comparable, Alan, to what we're doing now, where it's on chips and then back into oak to where it tones it down a little bit.
Yep.
But like first, second use of Amburana is oily. It either has to be the first or it has to be the only thing or the last thing you're drinking that day or that night, because it's going to blow your palate out. You can't have anything else.
Oh, and if you wake up after drinking that shit with a fucking hangover, Jesus.
Oh God.
Christ, you cannot get it out of your mouth. I swear to God, you'll sweat and you'll be like, why the fuck do I smell like cinnamon toast fucking crunch?
I figured out why they call it. I figured out why they call it cigar batch though. Like you wake up the next day and you like your mouth, it's like you just smoked 1,500 Swisher Sweets.
Right.
Like that's the only reason they call that cigar batch.
It's a crazy wood too. Anyway, so it's Brazilian oak is what it is. And it's a super soft oak, and it's also like highly, highly, highly endangered. Everything, all of it that we get in the United States, people don't realize this. So it was used for cachaça maturation for a very, very long time, which is kind of like rum agricole, just straight up from sugar cane. But all the stuff that we're getting in the United States, it's all like recycled flooring and fucking house siding and shit like that that's being shaved down and reused. But you can reuse this stuff literally, I don't know, in its raw form, because you don't really char it or anything necessarily. In its raw form, you could probably use it 5 or 6 times, and then you could hit it with a toast and probably use it 3 or 4 times. Then you could hit it with a char and use it 3 or 4 times. I mean, I've got some chips that, hell, I probably ran through 8 or 9 cycles on stuff, and it's still got plenty of flavor.
Whenever we dumped that the Sparrow barrel back into a new barrel, you'd give me some of those chips or those cubes, and I've used them a few times on stuff here. And it's still just as potent. Now I do have so you were talking about the reusing the flooring and all of that. So eventually, in my mind, I see it happening just like we're doing with the white oak now, with the not so much shortage, but the difficulty of finding barrels. Eventually, Amburana is going to be that.
Oh, it already is. You have to get on a waiting list to get an actual Amburana barrel, and they're about $900 a piece. So they're way up there. But think about the number of times you can use them, though. Again, but I'm curious. So there's another question down here, but first let's do the pecan wood, because I don't know shit about pecan wood. So
I do.
Me neither.
Okay. I do. I have like probably 12 pecan trees in my property. And we had a bad freeze a couple of years ago. You know, Central Texas, we get a bad freeze every 20 years, whatever. And it broke a bunch of limbs off. And so I cut them up, let them sit. And then I was like, I wonder, you know, I was using it for barbecue or whatever. And it's a really light smoke, so it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't even like post oak. And so I was like, I wonder what it would do with some liquor on it, you know, and just try it. So I found center wood. You know, it's been sitting out for 2 years or more. Got center wood cut. Did a medium toast, probably 225 for about 45 minutes maybe. And then did a real light char on it and stuck it in some, I don't know if it was corn whiskey or it might have been a corn and wheat mix. Anyway, left it in there for about 6 months. And the flavor on it wasn't like pecan, but it was a lot like, whenever you eat like walnuts and they give you that kind of, it's a salt, like a saline, but yet it's like waxy, a little waxy. That's what it tasted like. And it was not horrible, but I would like to see it obviously in a barrel and stuff like that. I'm actually sending. I've been meaning to do it, but I'm actually sending 3 big old logs to Christopher to make a Badmo out of a couple of them, so we can play around with that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's 3.5 years old, so yeah. That'll be even better. But yeah.
So do you think it would work better as like a component? Because I tend to think of Amburana that way, like, or even some of the darker French oaks, like small amounts you blend together with other spirits that are maybe the same spirit, maybe they're not, but on different oaks, and then you make something really interesting.
I would say 6 months, maybe a year, especially in a Badmo, 6 months, a year after finishing it off in there, it's going to give it that nuttiness. It's going to give it a good waxy taste to it. Which I know waxy sounds weird, but it gives it a good flavor. Like
anybody that likes any of the Johnny Walkers, they better like waxiness, because it's in
exactly.
Johnny Walker.
Exactly.
It's even in the high end Johnny Walkers, and that comes from a particular distillery. So,
so the reason I was interested in that question. So, other woods. So, my old property over in Shoals, we still own that, but we're actually going to be selling it here fairly soon. And there's some old plum trees there that'll end up getting cut down. And this is the sentimental side of me, but my dad planted those trees years and years and years ago. And I've thought about, whenever we cut those down, using those as letting those air season and then toasting those and charring those, just because that's the only thing that they're going to be able to be used for if they don't get tossed over the hills. So has anybody used any type of other trees, like fruit trees like plum or apple or anything like that?
I've done a little apple and mulberry in the past, but not to a great enough extent to know. It was at the time before I was really heavily into this, so I don't know how reliable my memory is or my impressions of it were. So if I do that, like I said, we're gonna have to cut them down anyway, so I just have to be able to get some wood out of there to do it. I would probably make a plum brandy and do that just for the sake of doing it on plum. And like I said, it'd be like Alan, the bottle of Pachuga that you did. That would be my Pachuga bottle. That'd be my my bottle.
Yeah.
I can tell you one to stay away from.
Yeah.
Not that they're easy to find anyways, but at Copper and Kings, because they were always just trying to do weird shit. So somehow the acquisition guy got a hold of some fucking Serbian juniper barrels one time.
Oh, God.
When I say Serbian juniper barrel, I mean it's made out of the wood of fucking juniper. It was,
I think you told me about that. Yeah.
They leak like a fucking sieve all the time because they have knots in them, etc. And then to make it worse, the owner of Copper and Kings made us put gin in one and absinthe in the other one. And they are the two most undrinkable products.
So you had gin squared.
Yes.
You had gin squared is what you had.
It was sappy and resinous, and like literally it was straight up terpene is all it was. That's all it was. Just straight fucking terpene.
I've never had that, but for some reason in my mind I'm thinking, the creosote, or whenever you have like a fireplace, lick that. That's for some reason in my mind that's what I'm going with.
So it more like soap, like licking a bar of soap. Is what it was like. You know what's crazy? They sold out of fucking both of them, and all the little hipsters down in Butchertown in Louisville were like, "This is great." I'm like, "That is fucking trash," and I made it.
Yeah, you were lying to yourself, is what that is.
Yes. So
let's one last question. This is from Mark Solomon. He's a buddy of mine. He's really into gin, and I can't help him because I'm not experienced in gin. I want to be, but that's later on down the road.
So I'm presuming that he knows what he wants to use for his base alcohol. So what he means is his actual botanical bill for gin. That's what I'm presuming. And I can give a rough outline of that, just roughly knowing botanicals, and then you guys throw in too, or however you want to do it. But it's going to depend on what he wants to do. It depends on whether or not he wants to run botanicals in the still or just in a gin basket. In a gin basket, you can get away with a lot lesser amount of botanicals, but the flavor will not be as intense. So my preference is almost always to run most botanicals, but not all in the still. So roughly, I'll just throw some amounts out there, some basic things. So like juniper, probably 60 grams per gallon. This is going to be at 80 proof maceration. Take it up to 100 degrees for an hour, and then let it set for 24 hours before you distill it. So 70 to 80 grams per gallon of juniper, maybe 8 to 10 grams of angelica roots, maybe 5 grams of licorice roots. I actually, even though you're not really supposed to throw citrus into the maceration, it usually goes into the gin basket. I like to throw it into the maceration, and on pretty much any citrus, between 5 and 20 grams per gallon. And you actually get some really interesting flavor bridging when you use things like lime peel and lemon peel and grapefruit peel and bitter orange and sweet orange together. And it goes kind of like a marmalade sort of flavor. Caraway and coriander around 40 to 50 grams per gallon. I'm trying to think of some of the other more common ones that people are interested in. You could throw a little bit of anise in there, like green anise if you wanted to. Keep it on the low side, maybe around 3 to 5 grams per gallon. And just those ingredients alone, I mean, that's a fairly complex gin, but you can keep adding to it. Anything floral that you want to add, I would put that in the gin basket. Lavender always sounds like a good idea. It never distills like a good idea. It tastes like fucking soap when you distill it. Jasmine actually distills fairly well. Honeysuckle distills extremely well, and you can gather that locally. I tend to dry it out in the dehydrator at like 90 degrees for 24 hours, and I'll throw just a fucking I don't care if it's 3 gallons still. I'll throw a fucking full handful of honeysuckle in the gin basket on that motherfucker. I don't even measure it. Elderberry flower, some parts of the United States, they may just still be flowering right now. Here, they're pretty much done flowering, but they have an interesting kind of earthy aroma. With those, sometimes I'll throw them in at, 15, 20 grams per gallon in a gin basket. If I wanted a little earthier sort of flavor to it. Yeah, that's just some rough numbers there generally. But for anybody that's interested in that kind of stuff too, the new Alchemist Cabinet book, the volume 2 that we have at thealchemistcabinet.com in the warehouse, has got a bunch of botanical recipes in it. And in part 3, which I'm working on now, we'll have about fucking 15 times that many botanical recipes in it. So
can you get it online as like a PDF? Can you purchase it that way?
So you can't get it as a PDF. It's a hard copy. You can either get off Amazon, and I think the link for that is on thealchemistcabinet.com, or you can order through us. We get it sent here from the printer, and then if you want it signed, I can sign it for you. We make more money if you buy it directly from us, etc., and then it becomes a more personalized sort of thing. If it shows that it's out of stock on the website at any point in time, just shoot us a message, and we'll get some new ones ordered, and we'll get it put up where you guys can order it. I'm not very good at plugging myself, so I always forget to do that. But there's the Alan Bishop Experience DVD that Bo Cumberland did is on there. If you've not seen it, it's fucking hilarious. It's fucking stupid is what it is, but it's fucking hilarious. And then there's a historic talk I did up at Salem, Indiana, about the history of distilling in Southern Indiana. Oh, grain base. Okay. I think 25 wheat, 25 corn, 25 spelt, and 25 malted barley. Spelt's interesting. I don't see anything there that would argue with it back and forth. The decision making comes from how you're going to distill that base, right? If you're going to single pass that with a thumper and use it as an actual whiskey to make your gin, which almost goes Genevieve territory, or if you're going to, if you're going to make your gin off of make your low wines, and then make your gin off those low wines, or if you're going to take and do a double distillation with rectification, take it up to 170, right? So here, my opinion is the following. If you want the flavor of that base alcohol to come through, don't be afraid to use something that has a little more flavor that you can build off of with your botanicals. Do a straight up double pot still distillation off of it. Cut your heads, cut your tails, keep your hearts, and then do your gin. And then you'll have the best of all the above. So,
yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate all you guys being on. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, now that I'm propagating wild yeast, I'm getting to the point where the volume's big enough where I want to start getting rid of some of the liquid. Do I want to crop the bottom where the yeast has fallen, get rid of the top, and replace it with a sugar solution so I can keep building up to the point where I have a solid like a good layer at the bottom, and then I can throw that in the fridge and feed it like once a week or so. Is that a good?
So yeah, the way like with liquid that I usually propagate is I let it get going for about 24 or 36 hours before I use it if I'm going to pitch it into something. And to give you an idea of volumes, so at work, 3 gallons will kick off 600 gallons of mash. It sounds crazy, but it'll kick it off. It'll be going within 12 hours if you have a good yeast strain. But what I usually do if I'm propagating is I immediately, like, I'll take the old yeast, I pour off half the liquid, and then I just add new liquid to that. And that's how I do it every time. So I'm maintaining the same volume over time. If you don't want to waste any, what you could do is pour off all of your liquid and then take that slurry at the bottom and dry it down. And then you have a shelf stable version that can be used as a powder.
I pretty much started with no yeast, so I'm still building it up to where there's barely any particles at the bottom. Yeah. So I'm just now getting it to where I'm at a large enough liquid to where I can pour off enough to replace it. But I just wanted to know, once I get a cake at the bottom, should I just put that in the fridge and feed it once a week or so?
Yeah, that's what I would do. And honestly, once it goes in the fridge, if you close it off from air completely, if you put it in there after it gets
I have the jars that have the little silicone top thing, so I don't really gotta worry about it.
Yeah, so then you don't even have to feed it, because once it's in that fridge and it doesn't have any air to it, it's going to go dormant.
Asleep, basically, yeah.
Yep. And we've had them last. You can reliably have them last for up to 6 months, but we have had them last like at work for up to a year. So
awesome. That mulberry yeast I collected is working hard. It's creating alcohol like crazy. I think that's going to be an awesome yeast strain.
If I don't ever contribute anything else to the community other than the fucking yeast propagation thing, I'm pretty fucking proud of that. So yeah.
Well, tell me about it.
Fucking break all the yeast makers. Don't ever buy yeast again. Fuck them.
Yeah. I basically just bought 1 pack of each kind, and I'm gonna propagate it from there. I don't need to buy any more after that.
Yeah, with distilling, it's not like brewing or winemaking. You don't got to be crazy clean with it either. So if it mutates, the chances are it's mutating to match whatever its environment it is, which is the way that you distill. It's the same as saving seeds from a garden. The seeds kind of cultivate the farmer as much as the farmer cultivates the seeds. So,
Hell
yeah. Well, I appreciate all you guys being on. This is so awesome that it went into double time. It went past double time.
You get a bunch of distilling geeks together, and we just we'll go, dude.
Yeah,
I know, right? Fucking 2 hours and 11 minutes. This is a good podcast, I think. I think we should do it again sometime. I don't know if you guys.
I'm up for it.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of shit we didn't touch on that we can certainly touch on for sure. And you do them a couple times, and you start getting more people coming out of the woodwork and asking questions. So,
hell yeah.
But, cool. Well, let us know, man.
I'll if you guys have any info on your pages and your websites, anything you guys want, send me a message and I'll put it on everything, on the live. I'll put it in the description. I'll put it on my wall, everywhere I'm at, and I'll share it. Yeah. So just let me know, guys.
Real quick here, 2 things. So first thing, I just want to thank everybody in the home distilling and moonshining community. I don't care which side they identify with. It doesn't matter to me, but for supporting one piece at a time. It's fucking awesome because I learned a lot of shit from doing that show, and I'm greatly, greatly appreciative of the support that I've gotten from that. It's not a huge audience. It doesn't have to be a huge audience. It's a dedicated audience. Secondarily, because I have to constantly pimp this because I'm good at the distillation shit and really bad at promoting everything else. If you're at all into the paranormal or the 14 or the weird, get with me and listen to If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything on whatever podcast platform you want to. Or if you have stories about that kind of shit, reach out to me. I'd love to have you on the show because it is hard to drag those stories out of fucking people.
Yep.
My wife would be into that. I'm going to turn her on to that for sure.
Please do. Appreciate it. Randall's been on there.
Yep.
Justin's been on there.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to introduce Tiffany.
No.
Say hi. She's the one that you can't hear what Alan's saying.
What the hell's Alan?
He says he loves you.
You're bullshit. I love you too, but I know that's not what you said.
You're so pretty.
So this is the wonderful lady that the event's for on Tuesday. So she appreciates everything that everybody's going to be doing. So
yes, I do.
Hell yeah.
Right.
Send me links and I'll post that here in just a minute. We'll
I
see
will
you
do,
guys.
will do.
Thanks for being on.
Yep.
Thanks for all your help,
y'all.
guys.
Pleasure, guys. Thanks.
Have a good one.
See y'all.